Fuck, that hurts. Hey y'all, Kyle here, and today we're going to be talking about The OA, which is a new Netflix show. Little surprise, last minute sci-fi, a spiritual, metaphysical, super weird show that Netflix just dropped on us at the last minute. It's really hard to do this review without spoilers, so I'm just gonna say right now that there's gonna be a lot of spoilers. So if you're interested in this show at all, I would say go watch the first episode, and if you dig it, then just finish the show, and then or get as far as you can, and then come back. And if you just don't care, then just keep watching. So let's get into it, alright? The OA is definitely... it's a piece of art. That's the best I can say. No, but seriously, I want to say ultimately that I liked it as a show, but it's very cheesy. It's super, super, super cheesy show. And basically, what the plot boils down to, alright, this is gonna get fucking crazy. So it starts out, there's this woman, and she's on a bridge. She jumps off the fucking bridge. Somebody's recording it on their phone. Cut to a hospital. She's in the hospital, and she's asking if she flatlined. And, you know, people are assuming that she just wanted to commit suicide because she went through all this crazy shit. So it turns out that the woman who jumped off the bridge used to be blind, and she was also missing for 7 years. The entirety of the story of the show is explaining those missing years. What it boils down to is that this woman has had several near-death experiences throughout her life. Starting with one that she had when she was a child. Turns out that she was also a Russian child who drowned in a bus accident that came back to life. And when she drowned, she went to some other dimension and met some being called Khatun. Khatun basically gives her an ultimatum. She says, you can stay here and live with me, or you can go back home and you know, live out your life. But I'm going to take something from you if you go back. And the girl says, yeah, I want to go back. So she makes her blind. Okay, so the girl also has visions. She has premonitions of the future. She saw that she was going to drown in the bus accident, but she didn't know what to make of it because she was too young. Then she gets this premonition that her father, her Russian father, is in New York. She's got adoptive parents, and she lives in the United States. And this is a whole sob story. It's all explained in episode 1. So she travels to New York. The premonition doesn't come completely true. She never bumps into her father, but she's like a really talented violinist, so she starts playing the violin in the subway, and this guy finds her. Turns out that the guy is a doctor, played by Jason Isaacs, who is a phenomenal actor. He was in Awake, great show. Dude is just awesome. He's always on point. He plays a doctor in this show. And what he studies is near-death experiences. So she decides that she wants to go with him as he's taking a trip back home. And she wants to be studied by him for his, experiments. Well, it turns out that this dude is a fucking psychopath. He has a gigantic glass cell in his basement, and he basically kidnaps her and holds her hostage in the cell, along with a few other people. That's already ridiculous, right? Well, it gets fucking crazier. The guy always drugs the people with this gas, knocks them out, and then subjects them to experiments. They don't know what the fuck he does because the gas kind of erases their memory as when it knocks them out. They come up with a plan to avoid the gas, and then they find out that this motherfucker has been taking them and putting them in this device that looks like this fucking saw trap and drowning them and killing them so that he can record the sound that it makes when they die because he wants to prove that there's an afterlife. That's ridiculous, right? But it's also super interesting. They slowly start to figure out how to avoid this gas so that when they actually are about to die because of this experiment, that they can actually have a near-death experience instead of just being killed over and over again so this dumb fuck can get this sound effect that he wants. All of this is being told. It's the protagonist telling her story to a group of other people. Soon she finds out that she needs the group of people need these 5 movements, the shit that I was doing in the intro. They need these 5 movements to open a portal to another dimension so that they can escape. At first it seems like they just want to escape the cells, but no, they want to escape reality and go to another dimension and live there instead. So in the present day, she gets 5 people because she's going to try and do it again because she's been separated from this group. Here's the problem with the show. All of this stuff is super interesting and super weird. As soon as I started watching the first episode, it hooked me. And I was like, wow, that is something that I've never seen before. It's really fucking cheesy. I'm not going to say that the show is not cheesy, because it definitely is. But the cinematography is fantastic. The performances are the only thing that keeps the show grounded. And it deals with subject matter that, personally, it's very impactful to me. Thinking about not the afterlife necessarily, but alternate dimensions and premonitions and the connection between our dreams and something greater than us. That rings true for me, like, really hard. That's what kept me hooked with the show. What I didn't like about it is that the elements were too disparate. They did not feel like one cohesive product. They all felt like things that should have been. Each little element felt like it was its own show. This woman experiencing this miracle and then telling her story to a group, that's like one story. The whole kidnapping and being in an underground lair, that's a whole other story. All the metaphysical shit is just like a whole different beast. So trying to combine them all into one tale is hard enough as it is. And it's very close to working. I'm going to say it's extremely close to working. But the special effects are a bit lackluster. Whenever the main character, the OA, goes to see Khatun, it just looks like something out of a horrible fucking blacklight poster from the 90s. And it's just like, I can't fucking take it seriously at all. So that's one thing. The other thing is that the ending to the show is super offensive. I feel like it's insanely offensive. And maybe it's just me, but the show ends with there being a school shooting and this group of people that the OA has gathered start doing their fucking weird interpretive dance shit to try and stop the shooter. And it's successful, and this dude tackles the guy, and then he shoots the OA. If there was some build-up and like some setup and payoff to that moment, maybe I would have been okay with it. But seriously, there's like an episode or two before that one, and the only setup we get is that she has a premonition and she doesn't know what the hell it is. And then it turns out that it's a school shooting. And god damn it, I just, like, I don't think that you should exploit something like that, like a tragedy that happens so often these days, just for dramatic tension. I mean, there was a number of things that they could have done that weren't a public shooting. Now, feel free to disagree with me on this. But I mean, I get that shootings are random. But it's like, was that really the route they needed to fucking go? Especially when the show already had basically reached its end point 15 minutes prior to that moment happening. The last 15 minutes of the show are just tainted because of that moment. And I feel like if they had just ended 15 minutes before, it would have been okay. At that mark, right before all that happens, this guy is exploring the OA's house because she's disappeared. She's gone to a hotel with her family, her adoptive family. And he finds all these books about all the shit that she's been talking about. And, it seems like she's completely lying about the whole thing. It's clear that she has had schizophrenic episodes and that she came up with this insane story that she got 5 people to believe. So much so that they were willing to stick their neck out and help her constantly. And then it's just this big fucking lie. And then they go and they flip it on its head, and then they're like, well, maybe she wasn't as crazy. Even that would have worked if they had some other scenario. But God, it was just really hard to buy into it because of that. I'm all for an ambiguous ending. I don't know how they could have changed it, but they needed to do something different. And I just gotta say that ruined the show for me. Now there's other aspects that are really powerful in this show. I'm gonna be completely honest. I mean, it's definitely like, for me, it was a guilty pleasure show too. Like, I felt a little embarrassed watching it at times, because it was just like, man, this is so fucking bad. At the same time, there were moments where I was just sitting there fucking blubbering like a baby. Oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And then they just pull some shit out like that. There's too many moments in this show that are like that, where something really powerful happens and then it's undercut by this really goofy fucking moment that you just can't really shake. You know, there's also like a lot of plot holes. I feel like they would have been fixed if it was a little less ambiguous and it was clear that this woman just straight up had schizophrenia, and that the story she was telling made sense at the time when you're listening to it, but you start to dissect it and then you realize that a lot of it doesn't make sense. The bottom line is that it's a decent show. I think it's worth watching for sure. Even if you just came into this and you listened to all those spoilers, it's still worth watching. Just shut it off 15 minutes before it ends. Do that and you have a pretty solid show. Maybe not as much closure as you would want, but I feel like that's better than the closure that you actually get. I would say that Brit Marling delivers a fantastic performance. You totally believe that she's blind in the scenes where she's supposed to be. You totally believe her story when she's saying it. And she has this weird mystical power over people that is totally convincing. Jason Isaacs is a terrifying villain. Phyllis Smith, she was in The Office. She plays a teacher. She's great. You know, pretty much the entire cast is great, but there's not enough time dedicated to everybody. So at times it feels like a little bit of a slog, especially when you're getting into each character's side story. But to fix that, they would have had to completely retool the show and had like each episode focus on a different character. And that just would have completely changed the way that everything works out. It's weird. I would say that it's weird, and it's definitely not for everybody. The final thing that I would also say is that it has a lot of elements that make it very similar to Stranger Things. But Stranger Things is definitely a more solid show. If Stranger Things is a love letter to the 80s, then 100% the OA is a love letter to the early to mid 2000s. All the metaphysical stuff, the weird, almost torture porn-ish horror elements, just the portrayal of teenagers, especially like the twist. All of it is like hardcore, like 2000s stuff. But where Stranger Things relied on the tropes and the subtle tweaking of those tropes to make the show solid, the OA just kind of embraces them and then just goes off in its own fucking random path. It's generic, but it's not generic in a way that makes a whole lot of sense. I'm gonna have to say that the OA is a solid 6. I would have given it a 7, maybe even a 7.5 if it didn't have that last 15 minutes. But holy fuck, that ruins the entire thing for me. And I would say judge for yourself, but that's just me. Alright, thanks for tuning in. So that's my review for the OA. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you really liked it, hit that subscribe button. Also got 2 other videos here for you to check out. And the end of the year is coming up, so I might have something in store for that. Alright, catch you around.